is going to be yes, our recording has started. Is going to be what is your one desired superpower and why? So I'll do a quick example of this. Our check-in for today, let's see. I'm checking in with this half-drunken matcha because I ran out of coffee and I always need a caffeine boost. I'm ready to start this presentation. And then my desired superpower, I'm always feeling like I'm running out of time. And I would just love it if I had like super speed, like I could just be the Flash, because then it'd feel like I always have time. But then even then, I'd probably find a way to run out of time anyway. All right. Yeah, so feel free to check in and list your superpower in the chat. Teleportation, that's a good one. Travel costs. Yeah, I had to pay for plane tickets to and from California. Even those were like, you know, you're not going like super far, but it's not cheap. Flying is a good one. I do wonder what it's like to fly. Has anyone gone skydiving before? I've never gone skydiving. Alley, super speed. Yeah, same. Let's go. Lots of people saying they want to teleport. That is pretty sweet. Emma's feeling like they always have to be in multiple places at once. Some type of water bending. Yeah, that's what's up. Right? Like I want to be able to do things faster. And then I feel like with super speed, if you can run across water, you can be halfway around the world. It's like effectively teleportation. Lauren just wants to be Superman. Reality manipulation. All right, Thanos. Absolutely. Yeah. The sun came back for like a little bit. If you're in the Seattle area, you know what I'm talking about. And then it just like went away and like absolutely poured. That was not super fun. All right. Has everybody had a chance to share? If you're still thinking, that's such a real thing. Yeah, I don't know if I can handle two Rosalynds. Just too much power in this world, you know? Okay, thank you so much for checking in. It's great to see you all. I'm gonna pass it off to Kyle to get us started for today.
Thanks, Paul, and thank you everyone for participating. We really appreciate you being here, coaches, CSF staff, and just students. Also, we invite you to turn on your cameras, but don't feel like it's an obligation in any form. If you are eating and you would like to eat, please do what you need to do to best take care of yourself or a bio break or anything. We just appreciate you for being here. So for today's objectives, we are going to reflect on our own identities and understand how they might inform and impact our experiences in the workplace or it doesn't always have to be work, but just in any space that you participate in or take up, right? It's about establishing a mutual understanding of diversity and inclusion in the workplace or whatever place, right? Understand our identities in relation to others and identifying ways to being successful and feeling supported in whatever space we take up. And I think the next slide, I believe, is a pre-survey. If you could either scan the QR code, but I'm going to put the link in the chat for everyone to just, I think it's like 4 or 5 questions. If you could take that real fast and let us know in the chat when you're done, just a simple done or a thumbs up would be appreciated. And yeah, we'll go from there.
And once you've finished this pre-survey, feel free to type in the chat like a done or like a thumbs up, just so that we know that everybody's ready to move on.
Or your favorite emoji, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
any sign.
any
We'll
emoji,
we'll
any
take it all
sign,
here.
any kind of interaction.
We're all about inclusion. I mean, that is the workshop. Paul, you want to give it one more minute?
You got it.
Sounds good.
I actually think that might be good. So thanks everyone for filling out that pre-survey. Let's move on to this next portion here.
So for our community guidelines, because we'll be participating in breakout rooms as a whole group, right? It's just about, remembering to use I statements as we speak about our experiences. We hope to learn to lean in and to lean back and to learn and unlearn. I know that was a lot of L's. I did not plan for that, but now I'm looking at it. That's a lot of L's. It's about challenging assumptions and considering new ideas.
Oh no.
And maybe
Oh,
experiment. Oh, sorry.
okay. Sorry, you froze for a hot second there, but you're good. Keep
Oh,
going.
oh, is everything okay now?
I think you're good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then experimenting with new ideas. We wanted to include, is there any other kinds of community guidelines that you would like to add as a group, right? Feel free to put into the chat.
Give folks some time to type a little bit. You can unmute too if you're feeling so brave. Absolutely, yeah. Being able to be vulnerable and also making space for folks to be vulnerable and letting them share their stories. I love that. Thanks, Rosalind. Right. Yes. It's all about challenging assumptions and not the individuals themselves. I love that. Thank you. Right. All right. If you're still typing something, feel free to throw it in the chat. But for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next part here. So today is all about talking about DEII, and those letters, they stand for diversity, inclusion, equity, and identity. And keep in mind that these are just the definitions that we're going to be working with today. These can change over time. These can change based on your experiences. But for the sake of today's conversations, we're going to work within these words here. So we're going to define diversity as the representation of an individual, group, and social differences through various forms of identity. For inclusion, it's all about efforts to ensure that every individual in a space feels valued and recognized by the greater community. And this is particularly for those who share identities with historically marginalized communities. Equity is all about having access and opportunities that acknowledge and seek to adjust the imbalance of power or balance of power, resulting in equal footing across all members of a community. And then for identity, this refers to one or many characteristics that impact a person and their experiences. There's a few examples of identities there. And then keep in mind that these often intersect with one another. We are not just like singular, one-dimensional beings. We have many identities that intersect with one another that affect and make unique experiences. So it's all about sharing these out when we're going to be following our discussions today. So now that we've gotten some definitions down, let's talk about a little bit more about each of these. So in our breakout rooms, we're going to split you all up into smaller groups so that you can kind of talk about some of these. Feel free to pick one of these in your breakout rooms. If you have time for more, that's great too. But I would love to get some just deep discussion for any of these that you feel strongly about. And I'm going to split up these breakout rooms, and we're going to be in there for just a few minutes. And then once you've wrapped up your conversation, try to designate one person to share out. And let me form these groups real quick. We're going to try and do 3 to 4 people per room. And don't forget to introduce yourselves. And let's see, those rooms should now be open.
Do I have to be in a breakout room? I don't know what you want me to do.
No, you're good.
Cass is in there and Kevin.
Should
Oh,
we
got it.
pause?
welcome back, everybody.
Welcome
Trickle
back.
in. Some of these rooms are like staying. I always wonder if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. You know, like are people like super eager to jump back because they had great conversations and want to share, or are they like still going and that's why they're not back yet? Everybody screens off, not talking.
Reminds me of those Zoom days.
I know. I do not miss it. Rooms should close now. Okay. Let's just make sure we got everybody back. Okay, everybody's back. Awesome. So thanks everybody. I hope you had really productive conversations. Could I get like 2 rooms to share out what they talked about? I asked y'all to designate, but for the sake of time, I think we can just have a couple people recap their conversations for us.
Well, I'm already off mute, so I can recap ours real quick.
Easy.
So we only got through diversity and equity. So the main points that we hit for diversity is acknowledging, obviously, like we thought it encompassed like different people, different experiences. That's what came to mind for diversity. But when it came to equity, we thought like true equity is more than just like equality for all. It goes like to go the further mile, you really have to think about accessibility because not all of us are the same. So like you can meet certain people's needs, but going the full like 100 is by thinking about students who like maybe are disabled or people who are like practicing Ramadan right now and like inviting them to certain events and just adjusting in order to meet their needs, not just the needs of the majority. And that's all we got through.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. I love that you were talking about, the difference between equity and equality because they sound really similar and in a lot of ways they are similar. But equity is really all about, understanding that imbalance, like you mentioned, and making sure to accommodate for differences in privilege and experiences, so that everybody is uplifted. I love that. Thank you. Can I get one more individual to share it? Aryan? Yeah.
Sure. So my group mates and I, we were all coming from different institutions, and we mainly focused on diversity. One thing that we all kind of talked about was how diversity is a term that populates various groups, a larger group of people, but also how important it is to work it out individually to make diversity happen that way as well. For instance, in our schools, we have various registered student organizations or clubs that I would like to mention, and they're all cultivating uh, groups of people from different backgrounds, from different ages, from different ethnicities, different religions, different stories, right? However, if we do not take the opportunity to meet with them, separate 5 minutes of our time to actually have a conversation with them, we would not understand the diverse community that we're living in. So that diversity might be there, but as long as we do not take a step forward to actually get there and explore that diversity, that diversity for us would really mean nothing. So it's also individually important that we take a step forward, explore the community we are in, and realize how, in most cases, lucky we are to share such community with people who share different stories that also at the same time respect for one another.
You said it, man. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. Diversity really all is about embracing like differences in perspective. And, when everybody is able to share their stories, everybody's able to, talk about the differences and, kind of come together and explain, this is where I'm from. This is why I think differently. And we can all learn from each other. And I think you're exactly right on in that. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna pass it off to Kyle to go over our next part here.
Could we actually go back
Oh,
just
yeah.
for one little thing? Yeah, I just wanted to add some food for thought. Paul and I actually talked a little bit about this yesterday. This is not a question for anyone to answer, but just rather thinking about it. It's like, for example, Paul and I share a similar ethnic identity, being both Vietnamese and identifying as cisgender male. But my question is, how much of our lived experiences actually fuel our understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion? So imagine being in a room with everyone who shares identities similar to yours, but maybe if you were to ask them, how would you define DEI and I, maybe they would say something different. I think that's the beautiful part about our experiences is because we can share, community and share a lot of values, but from our lived experiences, whether from triumphs to trauma to everything in between, it may be different, and that's totally okay. So I just wanted to add some food for thought. Okay, Bob, ready for the next slide?
You got it.
Thank you. So we're going to be talking about microaffirmations and microaggression. So microaffirmation are subtle behaviors that offer recognition, encouragement, and validation of an individual's experiences. A microaggression is a brief, everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental comments or actions, whether it be intentional or unintentional, directed at a member of a marginalized group that communicates a hostile, offensive, or negative message. So I'm going to throw into the chat something known as a Jamboard. And Paul, could you actually go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And so this activity is called Voicing My Reality. When you click onto the Jamboard, it will take, or Paul, can you click on the Jamboard, actually?
Mhm.
It should be, yes, no worries. Let me know if it works.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to share this separately. 1 second.
No worries. But when you click on the Jamboard, you're going to see a side that says microaggression and microaffirmation. And it should be, yeah, everyone looks anonymous. I think I can see that, yeah, at that point. Just clicking that plus sign, I think there's like a sticky note to add a sticky note. and really just adding a lived experience that you've had, whether it's a micro affirmation and a microaggression, and just sticking it on the Jamboard. Did that make sense, everyone? Just wanted to make sure.
Right, and we'll take some time here to let these ideas flood the board.
That's a good one. Yeah, where are you really from? Oh,
That's a good one.
not good as in like, that's
Yeah.
great that that happened, but good as in like, yeah, that is a prime example. Yeah, how does your hair do that? Mhm.
Oh, I keep putting stuff on the left side when I should. My fault.
Can I touch your hair? You are so articulate. Is it a cultural dress that you're wearing? Why are you wearing that? I met my high school teacher in my college for a program, and he said, "Wow, you made it." Those earrings, wow. Oh, I thought you're a refugee, was told to me, a brown person. Mm. I didn't know natives
That's
still
crazy.
existed. I thought you were anything. I thought you were anything
Oh,
not
anything
my.
not your race. I see.
Oh, anything not your. Oh, okay, okay. Wow, you look really pale. You look like a Lola or Maria.
Oh yeah, someone saying thank you for sharing your perspective based on your experiences. That is very affirming to hear. I see you. Such a simple thing, but it does feel really good to hear that.
Yeah.
Someone
What?
consistently mispronouncing your name even though you corrected them many times. That is really frustrating.
Mhm. Would anyone be willing to unmute and maybe unpacking a little more in depth about their experience? If you're comfortable, of course. Just holding space for you all.
Some sticky notes here. Thanks everybody for sharing.
I can share a little bit about what I put. I put the one about someone mispronouncing your name, even though you've corrected them many times. So I'm a college success coach at PLU, and one of their campaigns there that they talk about is names are sacred. And I think that that is such a beautiful saying because your name from many people is connected to maybe some cultural background or maybe some history in your family or whatnot. And especially if you have a name that's not as like common or is like connected to like more like white identities and stuff, like people will constantly mispronounce it, and even though you correct them, like they're still going to go with whatever they think, and that can be something that does hurt you as your name does represent who you are and your identity more often than not. And so that can feel, and that can be a microaggression that many experience.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kalina, for being vulnerable and sharing that. Is there anyone else who's comfortable in sharing with us? whether a microaffirmation or a microaggression they've experienced?
So at work, I have worn a pronoun pin. I'm gender non-conforming. I just wear any pronouns as a pin. And I've had a couple people of older generations come up to me that I work with, go out of their way to discuss political things with me because they can assume what I believe by my pin.
Thank you for sharing that, Emma. And just being vulnerable with that reality, right? Of, we're taught as a society to always, I feel like, respect those that are older because they've quote unquote experienced more, but having them, already categorize you, already group you before even knowing, your name or anything about your background. That's a harsh and just hard reality to, be a part of, right? Especially at a workplace. And then I saw in the chat, and I want to voice this out loud, is from Jesleen. It says, it's even worse when they try to give you a more American name because they don't want to put in the small effort of learning how to say your name. Facts. Okay, I think, Paul, are you ready for the next round of,
Yeah,
I think, the
absolutely.
intros? Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for everyone participating on the Jamboard. I really appreciate you and just your vulnerability and, really just holding space for your realities.
I'm gonna switch back to our presentation here. Okay, so keep that Jamboard open if you have it. So we talked about microaffirmations and microaggressions, what it's like to experience them. But another part of our learning objectives today is to empower you to understand how to respond to these microaggressions or microaffirmations when you experience them. And so with that, let's move on to the next part of our workshop today, which is going to be responding to scenarios. So that Google Doc that we linked earlier, Kyle, if we could send that one more time. On the second page of that is going to be a big list of scenarios. And what we're going to do is we're going to head back into the same breakout rooms that you were in before. And feel free to pick one of those scenarios, or you can pick one of the experiences that were listed on the Jamboard if that is more salient for you, more meaningful for you to discuss today. Feel free to talk about like how you would feel in that situation, how you would respond to it, and maybe like some responses that you've seen that were either good or bad. And again, we're going to have you all designate one person to recap the end of your conversation when those breakout rooms end. But we'll be in there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll be sure to update you with the broadcast to make sure that you know how much time you have. So let me open up those rooms again, and you all are free to go.
Welcome back.
Hi, everybody. Y'all took like the full 60 seconds to come back. That's great. I hope
All of
your
you.
conversations were productive and feeling good. And this time I'm gonna not share so that everybody can see each other while we're talking. So could I get a couple rooms to recap their conversations?
Yeah, for our group, we talked about the letter D, which was about like a supervisor interrupting Spanish speaking conversations.
Mhm.
We pretty much talked about how it's like, it's rude, first of all, to interrupt a conversation that other people are having that you were invited to. But also, it's like, you have the right to speak in Spanish, so why are you being taken away of that right to speak Spanish or English? And then we also talked about how they don't like the supervisor interrupting. It's like he doesn't even know that like they're Mexican or like they can just be like speaking Spanish for fun. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be anything bad. So it's like he shouldn't have to
like say anything to the coworkers.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of assumptions that are happening here, right? Like supervisor assuming that they can jump into this conversation, that this space is like English only, when historically like languages that aren't English have been excluded for very political and like dehumanizing reasons. And then also again assuming that like that everybody speaks Spanish because it's their first language. Like, yes, that might be true. And also that doesn't give you the agency to, you know, to stop them from using their native language. So that was great. Thank you so much for sharing, Ali. Also, it's good to see you. Could I get another room to recap their conversation?
Cass and I were in a group and
Love it.
we discussed A and E. And so for A, which is about the professor asking the only Latina employee about people, how like people would feel about their product, we talked about how we we feel that it's not really fair and appropriate for just anyone to ask one single person to represent such a diverse and huge group of people because everyone has their own different experiences and it's just not appropriate to ask someone that because yeah.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
for like the long commute about the internship and the workplace, we talked about how it's not, let's see, it's kind of hypocritical to make a statement, but then have your environment and the workplace that you're in charge of not reflect that properly. And I guess that's one of like the reasons why it's so important to have a safe space where employers or interns can like speak up and actually discuss what issues that they have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to make sure I touch on both the things that you mentioned. For your response to scenario A, yeah, it's like not fair to box in like a single perspective and have them like account for an entire group, right? And there is injustice there. And there's also this power imbalance because you're putting someone on the spot, you're expecting them to share. That's a really uncomfortable position to be in. And then for scenario E, like, yeah, like you're not like they're saying like you should, you know, take care of yourself, you should do what you need to do. But then also at the same time, that's not the culture that's like shared in this workspace, you know, and that in its own like invisible way has a lot of like pressure that sits on the individual. And you know, there's probably other people in that same space who are feeling like they want to go home but can't because other people are working. And this is just like it's not part of the culture in that space to share about those experiences and those injustices. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Jesslyn. Okay, just for the sake of time, since we only have a few minutes left and I want to make sure that we get to raffle off some stuff, I'm gonna hand it off to Kyle to talk about some resources for you all.
Thanks, Paul. So one of the first resources or considerations is seeking mentors and building authentic relationships, right? Whether this is your CSF coach, an advisor, a trusted professor within your field or not, I feel like higher ed is one of those murky waters where, it is scary to ask for help and it's learning to kind of be a little uncomfortable, but kind of holding space for yourself because one, you deserve it, and two, there are people there to help best support you in aligning your goals or getting to where it is you want. Now, not everyone will be helpful, right? Because that is a reality, but I promise you that there is one person that is willing to listen. The next one is finding allies in community with others and yourself. I feel like as a society, we've been conditioned to really find community with others, but has anyone ever asked you, have you found community within yourself? So, when you go into a certain space, do you feel like you have to code switch? Maybe you have an accent, but you might want to fit in a little more and you feel like it is necessary for you to be respected by them if you erase a part of yourself, right? Not saying that that's everyone's reality, but it's about how do you hold space for yourself and how do you present yourself in a most authentic way where you not only feel safe, like physically, but psychologically and just sustained. The last one is really leaning in with not knowing and asking questions. I know that is probably one of the most uncomfortable things to be like, yo, hi, me, I actually don't know the answer, or I might have misspoke, or, engaged with it in a way where it was harmful to me. So I, accidentally harmed. And I think it's, a really to humanize that, right, is really to just express, yo, I actually don't know what I'm talking about. I'm really lost. Could I get some support? Right. And it's about building capacity and learning to be okay without knowing, right? And learning that how others respond is not a reflection of you, it's rather a reflection of them, whether they respond in a really great and empowered way or in a really destructive way, right? We cannot control others, but rather how we engage with the information we know at best. And the last one is a really helpful link that I found recently, and I think it's on, did Paul just put it in the chat?
I did.
Oh, thank you, Paul. And it has different resources for different individuals in different communities, whether that is helplines or resources for therapy or even podcasts, right? And kind of, you know, when you navigate the murky waters of higher ed, it's nice to know that there are others that may have been in a similar shoe. I mean, it's not nice to know that they've been oppressed in a similar way, but just to normalize and kind of, you know, how did they go about it and finding community within that. Okay, Palm, I think we're ready for some fun raffles.
All right. Sorry. I gotta get this post survey in
Oh.
before everyone heads out. So we're doing a raffle for everybody who attended today, and then we're also doing a raffle for folks who did the post survey or who complete the post survey. Kyle just dropped the link in the chat. Feel free to fill that out super quickly. And I'm going to pull up a raffle wheel for everybody.
I got too excited for the raffles and forgot
I
about the post
got
surveys.
excited too. I'm right there with you. Okay. And while you're filling that out, I'm gonna spin. We're gonna pick 2 names today, and these are for 2 $50 gift cards. Who we got? Who we got? Let me know if your name is not on here also. Yeah, Yamili. All right. If you could private message me or Kyle with an email, so that we can send you a gift card, that'd be awesome. And let's spin this one more time. Whoa, let's go, Allie. Congrats to Allie for winning the second gift card. And again, we're gonna have two more drawings for folks who fill out the post survey. So if you didn't win these 2, don't worry. And let me bring it back here because there's one more very important thing that you can't miss.
The most important slide that took me about 1 minute to make. It is the most important, I promise.
Oh my God, where is it? I'm like really drawing this out.
Everyone gets $1 million. I'm just kidding. I know. Money for you, money for you.
All the way to the end.
Oh, we
There
just
it
wanted
is.
we just wanted to say thank you for sharing the space with us with this cute Winnie the Pooh. So he says thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. Thank you, fellow CSF folks, for joining and supporting us in this workshop. And have a great day, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your
Absolutely.
week. Have a lovely
Enjoy
weekend.
spring.
Go
Bloom like the
outside.
beautiful flowers.